Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I am joined by Rachel.
Hello.
And Mackenzie.
Hello, hello.
And Alex.
Hey there.
We're all here once again. We made it to number 3. Who's excited for number 3? This is our 3rd episode, and we couldn't be more happy to be here and join you all wherever you may be listening right now. I would like to give a shout out to everyone who reviewed our first couple episodes on iTunes and gave us, thumbs up on YouTube and all of those great things. Thank you very much for doing that. We feel the love. Today we are going to be talking about consumerism and materialism in and out of the church, and how that affects us as Christians, and kind of figure out where we land on some of these things. It should be a good discussion. I kind of want to gauge the excitement. Where's everybody at in the room? I mean, I feel like that's one of the most churchiest things that people say, and maybe they just say it across the board. Like it's a YouTube thing when they're on their YouTube channel. They're like, "Hey guys, we're excited to be here." We do it on the church stage a lot. We're so excited for whatever. I want to know how excited we are. Are we all very excited?
I'm excited and nervous.
Okay, good.
This is a topic that makes me uncomfortable because it's literally something I've had to wrestle with in my own mind and heart and convictions. And so I'm excited, but also nervous because this isn't scripted.
Yeah, I know. That is always, it is like this improv voyage that we take, and it's sometimes scary. Mm-hmm. Anyone else excited?
Yeah, I'm just nervous.
Okay, good.
So excited right now.
Your eyes are intense.
If you're not watching the video version, you should, just to see the excitement on her face.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's dive in, with some surface level questions just to kind of get us into the topic of consumerism and maybe where we find ourselves in that. So the first question I have is, what is something that you have either waited in a line for a really long time, like a product release, or maybe you've pre-ordered something, you stayed up way too late at night to pre-order some product or something. Maybe it's concert tickets or an iPhone.
Squatty potty.
A squatty potty, the hottest item of 2014.
Hey, those things are good.
Are they? Would you like to elaborate on that?
I got one for free, and it was the best free thing I've ever gotten.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Works
Do
great.
you use it?
Oh, yeah, daily.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Squatty potty. All right, they're not a sponsor yet, but I'm sure once they hear this, we'll be well on our way. What other than a squatty potty, what is something, Alex, did you have anything?
I can think of a couple things when I was a child. One that might ease me into it and make me feel better about myself because I feel like it's safe and removed when I was a child. But Beanie Babies, Thai Beanie Babies. Any of you guys into Thai Beanie Babies when you were a kid?
A little bit.
No, sorry.
Okay, I'm sure most of our listeners are highly into Thai Beanie Babies. And so they were literally stuffed animals filled with beans by like a particular company.
Kidney beans?
Yeah. I don't know what kind of beans. Okay. And they had tags. You couldn't take the tags off. A lot of rules, which would one day, when I'm my age, make them worth so much money. And so I remember one time after Princess Diana died, they did one in memory of her. And the Princess Di, Beanie Baby, or Diana, whatever. And I remember like literally some friends of mine that lived behind us and me, we wanted to get that. And so we went to Hobby Lobby. Nobby's. I apologize. Let me name drop the right place. Nobby's. We went to Nobby's. We camped out all night for them to open at 8 a.m. So we got there I'm like probably 12, 13, and we did this. And
wow.
Just for that Beanie Baby, because you could only get one per person. And this was going to pay for my college. Didn't work out, but I remember that being one of those times.
That's too bad. Do you still have it though?
I don't. Okay. I have no clue where it is.
Oh, it's a shame.
So it'd be worth a lot of money now.
Nobby's is a party supply store, so why did they have these?
It was like one of those things that when it's cool, everybody has to get it because they're going to make money. It's like fidget spinners.
Oh,
Right?
I see.
Everywhere. You could get fidget spinners everywhere 2 years ago.
Gas stations. Yeah,
McDonald's. Like
This is true.
churches were handing them out.
So you were
Literally.
like, I'm going to Nobby's.
That was like the closest place
Okay.
that we thought we had our best shot of camping out and getting it. So, yep.
Okay, very cool. The only thing I've ever like really wanted that I stayed up all night and called and waited on the phone, Garth Brooks tickets. I love Garth
Ooh.
Brooks.
Amen.
Do you?
I love Garth Brooks too. It's secret. No, it's not really secret.
Not
People who
anymore.
really know
Everybody
me know.
knows.
What's your
when I was-
favorite Garth Brooks
when I was
song?
a kid.
Oh,
Oh boy. Oh, this is a question that I feel like I'm taking away from Mackenzie's moment here.
No,
but
I would
let's,
like to know.
Let's see. I mean, there's the classics, right? Like The Dance and like Friends in Low Places. But you know, Call in Baton Rouge is probably one of my personal favorites, like of all time. I don't know exactly what that song is about. It sounds a little bit
the fiddle is
sketch.
worth it. The fiddle.
Yeah, but
I
the
love
content, I don't know who he's singing about. But anyways, that's probably my favorite song. I'm just saying.
Cool.
I agree with you.
You really like Call
How
in
about
Baton
The
Rouge?
River? That song is
That
very
one's really good too.
inspirational.
It is. Yeah.
So did you get the tickets?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yes, I've been to the same concert like 2 or 3 times. It was
Welcome
amazing.
to the Garth Brooks podcast presented by.
I wish.
We're
No,
just
I'm just
gonna
kidding.
break down all of.
And were they
his
good?
songs.
Were they good tickets? I'm curious.
Have you ever seen Garth Brooks in concert?
I've seen I've seen Garth Brooks.
If you, yes,
But
it
were they
was
good
life changing. Oh, good
Oh,
tickets.
wow.
Yes.
Like-
yeah, it was fine. I saw him in Omaha and Wichita, and both amazing.
Okay, good.
He had a live special on TV when I was a kid, and it was just bananas. Like he's like climbing ropes and swinging out over the crowd, and
Yes.
like he's just a crazy man. So he's a real entertainer. I
Mm.
could see why you'd want to stay up to get tickets. All right, it's you, Rachel. I forgot your name for a second. I
it's
apologize.
okay. Yeah.
What's your name again? Who are we? Where are we?
Yeah. So I would say, okay, Gymshark. It's a big brand for like workout clothes, and I work out a little bit. I don't know, every so often, and just I don't know. I was really wanting to get these Gymshark clothes because it was just gonna make me feel really like good and intense in the gym. Like, yes, I should be here. I have Gymshark on. Like, this is where I need to be. So I stayed up. I got up in the morning really early. They have an online sale, and I bought like 3 pairs of leggings just because it was all on sale, and I can't afford it normally. So, yeah. So
I'll do all of our listeners a favor and not sing the Baby Shark.
Yeah,
Thank you,
will not.
please.
That's not what was in
you.
my head.
That popped into my head immediately when you said Gymshark. So.
When you said Gymshark, I remembered this joke or meme I saw this week that was saying one of the things that you could do really bad is if you had a dog named Shark and you went to the ocean. You started yelling, "Shark!
oh my gosh.
Here, Sharky,
Sharky,
Sharky.
Sharky, Sharky!" You know. So, anyway,
Yeah, don't do that. I'm glad that we're already just starting off with great advice for people.
the life lessons people get from here are amazing.
Don't name your dog Shark. I'd never heard of Gymshark. Is that
You
so?
should
It's
look it up.
It's pretty good.
I had not either.
It's only for the most intense gym.
And I like to
people,
think
so-
I, know something about fitness stuff.
Yeah, I guess not.
It's Gym GYM or like
Yeah, GYM.
I was thinking JIM.
Not
That's
sponsored.
what I thought too.
Like Jim.
Mr.
No.
Jim Shark.
Yes.
He has a fine apparel line. For me, it's a couple of things. Like all the iPhone releases, like when that was a big deal, and you'd go wait in line. Like I'd do that. I'm really into video games, so I remember being newly married. I was like 18 or 19 when I think I was 18 when this particular thing came out. It was called the PlayStation 2. I was very excited for the PlayStation 2. And I didn't have any money to buy the PlayStation 2, but I just wanted to be part of the zeitgeist, like of the excitement. And I went and like waited in lines to buy one. And I mean, they sold out before it got to me every time. I went to 2 different lines, and I was just like, oh man, I couldn't get it because they sold out, not because I didn't have any money.
So what would have happened if you would have made it to the front? You would have just had to say,
I don't
I'm
know.
sorry.
To this day, I'm not sure what I was planning
don't
on.
actually have money.
I don't know what I was thinking. Like, I was just so excited about it. I was just like wrapped up in the moment, and yeah,
Wow.
I think I slightly remember going to a Sears, which is the most ridiculous place to go because I knew they were going to get them. So I thought, well, maybe people won't line up there. But there was a line. And I think in the back of my head, I was like, oh, I bet I could like get a Sears card or something. And, like,
Just charge it.
Yeah. Put this on,
Sears
yeah, put it on my Sears card. No, but that's probably, I don't know. That's kind of embarrassing in some ways. But, you know, we're all excited about different things. Garth Brooks, whatever.
I just looked up Gymshark while you were talking.
Oh, did you? Did you buy something?
I didn't buy anything, but I really had no clue what it was. So
Oh my.
now I'm educated and I want a bro tank. So
But I do think it's interesting because that is like part of, sometimes that becomes part of our personality and our identity is these purchases that we make and the brands that we support. It becomes so much of who we want to see ourselves as and who we want other people to see us as. Yeah, so I don't know. I have a couple other questions here like that kind of tie to that I want to dive into, and that's what are those brands that you want to identify with? Like, I mean, not to make like an advertisement, but is there something that maybe you're even like, maybe even I need to pump the brakes. Like I get way too excited about these products and things like that. I mean, I think like the Church of Apple is one of those where a lot of people get really excited. I mean, maybe not as much now. I feel like sometimes they've had some letdowns with their products recently. But I mean, are there other products that you're just like, I own this and this is why people respect me, or so, at least those things that you kind of lie to yourself about?
I wouldn't say that I have any specific brands, but I am the type of person that walks through Target and thinks if I have that sweater, I will be happy. And then if I get the sweater, I'm just like the same person, but I have a new sweater.
You're like,
so
oh,
it's just like, things are such a deception, you know, like you think that they'll make you happy. You think they'll make you like a different person if you go buy a whole new wardrobe.
Yeah.
So it really doesn't matter the brand to me. It's just about having new things.
Or like in middle school when like Abercrombie and Fitch was such a big deal, and it's like if you don't have that shirt that has like the logo on it, then you're not really cool. Like what, you know? And so it's like now I'm like, I can't believe I did that. But now I'm like, well, I need like the North Face or like the Patagonia, or you know, like it's funny because you think you outgrow it, but then really in reality there's some brands in it that adults kind of go for.
Or even I think it was like Starbucks. I feel like that's such a status symbol to walk around with that green straw coming out of your cup. Or, you know what I mean? And it's such a thing that people like, oh, I gotta have my coffee and like where I get it from, and you know, it's something maybe a little bit smaller, but it's still something that people really, it forms their identity.
yeah.
Or at least they think it does.
Yeah, for me, it's probably one of those. There's probably multiple. Is probably Tom's, which I can justify much better.
You know
than
that those
all
actually
of you.
like ruin the economy in these smaller countries where they give them
because
the free shoes.
I
more.
actually got
Wow.
to give out them in another country one time, but
How'd that work out?
kids were happy.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it was a joyous moment.
Were
But-
they actually Toms you were handing out?
Yeah, they were
Okay,
Toms.
I
They
always
were sent
wondered
to-
that.
Anyway, but I mean, like the cheapest of Toms. Anyway, it's one of those brands for me that I'm like, oh, I can. People are gonna see it and they're gonna know I'm super awesome, and I give things away to people. It's like a humble brag, but also I do like the products, and so, but I justify why I like them so much and why they get such a stronghold because I'm doing good with them.
Yeah.
It's not just about me.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. I think there's just a lot of times that we have like kind of maybe the subconscious motivations or things that we don't realize why we're buying the things we're buying or why we take pride in these items. I think one example of it that has come up recently on Instagram is the whole preachers and sneakers movement. This has become quite the phenomenon. I mean, they're up now. They have their own merch that they're selling.
They really are.
Now, for people who aren't familiar with this, I feel like Alex, you might know the most about the history of this. Like, let's give people just a quick, like, lesson if they've never heard of preachers and sneakers. What am I talking about?
Yeah, I'm hoping someone creates Preachers and Toms one day, or that I even kind of secretly hope I get featured on there. Anyway,
Gotta buy some.
like I've
On
weird
Preachers and
flex,
Sneakers? Is
but
that what you're
okay.
talking about?
Were you talking about preachers and toms you want to be featured on, or preachers and sneakers?
Either or.
Oh, okay.
You know, but
All right.
anyway, so Preachers and Sneakers, literally it was like this overnight Instagram in the church world, kind of a couple buddies, which sometimes they get together and talk and like, dude, what if we created this Instagram account that highlighted how much pastors spend on their shoes, because shoes are like a really cool thing right now, and sneakerheads are all about that. And a lot of pastors are wearing like suits with tennis shoes, which is kind of a weird flex. That's a way people say cool. I learned from middle schoolers. Anyway, and so they started highlighting it, and they put up, a couple pastors and how much their shoes were. They utilized this website that talks about how much shoes are, and not necessarily like the MSRP, but like what, they're rare shoes, and so how much they're valued at on like a secondary market. And then it just blew up, because I think it started a conversation that people have always wondered and wanted to have, but no one really started that conversation. And so it kind of threw fire on this whole idea of pastors and church leaders and how much they're spending on things, yet they're asking for money. And so it really sparked this debate, and it blew up overnight. Some people on both sides of the issue. And so that's kind of a little bit of the backstory for that.
And people are responding to this in very different ways. Like, you can try to dive into the motivations behind, purchasing these, extravagant sneakers or whatever, sometimes up to 4 figures. And it's like, well, are they trying to relate to like a youthful culture to get respect from them so that they can, kind of like, hey, you respect me, now listen to this message of Jesus I got to deliver? Or, are they just spending money because they have money? And is that okay for pastors to be spending money like that?
Or were they given to them?
Or were they a gift? That is, and that's kind of something that we want to dive into that a little more. So, how's what's everybody's take on that? Like, what's your gut feeling when you hear, oh, so-and-so, Mr. Pastor spent, $3,000 on a sneaker?
When I first saw that account, I got really angry, because I am the person, I think in my life, I'm typically not very, I don't want to say I'm not materialistic, because I'm sure I'm materialistic about some things.
Sweaters.
But, sweaters. Yeah. Target sweaters. No. But when it comes to spending money, I think like my upbringing, we didn't have a whole lot of money. And so I really notice how people spend their money, I think, and especially when it's a spiritual authority or somebody who is a pastor. I think it's really important for them to not live an extravagant life, or to, it's important for them to steward their money well and to be a good example. And so I think a lot of that comes from my own maybe upbringing of how our family spent money, and how I was learned that you should handle money, especially when I became a Christian. And a lot of us, probably not all of us, but some of us became more aware of our faith when we were in middle school and high school. And Rachel, going back to what you were saying about when you're in middle school, and brands are important when you're a student. And it's really hard to kind of find your identity and find your security outside of what other people think about you as a student. And so finding my identity in Christ kind of came alongside finding my identity outside of things. And so then when I see pastors and people who are authority people and spiritual authorities doing things like that, there's a lot of tension within me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I would say I kind of felt the same tension in the beginning, but as I started to talk with someone else about it, like the whole extravagant thing, like, are they kind of living outside of what you would expect? They were like, well, I'm sure some people look at your life and look at what you're doing and think, oh, you're living kind of extravagantly, like, and so that kind of really drew me back a little bit and made me get a little more humble just in my own life of just being like, oh yeah, to a lot of people, I actually am very well off, and I'm probably wearing some things that they are like, oh wow, that's excessive, or they're spending too much money on that. So it's, that initial judgment, but then realizing, well, I'm probably in the same exact boat as them to some other people. So.
Yeah,
that's good.
So you plan on buying some really expensive shoes, Alex?
No, I don't want to buy any. I just want to borrow some. So I know a couple of sneakerheads, and I'm like, dude, could I borrow your shoes? I don't care if they're 6 sizes too small. I want to get featured. No. Okay, I actually did ask somebody that once, to be honest. But I think, like, as somebody who gets the privilege to sometimes stand up and speak and preach God's word, and, like, do it here at Christ Community, which is a larger church, and, like this Sunday, a few thousand people like listened to what I had to say and saw me. Like even this Sunday was like a funny, like literally I wore my pants different between the two different services because my wife's like, you can wear your pants not rolled up at service 1 because the crowd in there, the traditions crowd, is not going to be down with you rolling your pants up. And so, and then apparently they had a lot of conversations in her MOPS group last night about how stupid I looked and things like that. And so,
ouch.
I think there is more pressure, for somebody thinking about how I'm presenting and what I'm wearing on a stage. Like you want to look presentable and good. And if you happen to work at a church that has multiple service and worship styles and generations, you're trying to like live somewhere between those things. And so we do have a church that's got a traditions type of service, and there's expectations maybe on people in suits and long pants. And I've heard comments from people after I've preached about my outfits. And then I also want to be relevant and comfortable, reflect the audience of our 1045 service, which is a lot more contemporary. And so there's probably a lot more pressure and thoughts, at least peeling back from the pastor side of that I think about probably more than I need to before even going up and what I'm wearing and my whole outfit before going up to preach. And some of it's just to be sensitive to the people that I'm preaching to and not wanting to create a barrier between me and those people and a distraction. So
if you go back to a level where all of us, I think, can relate, I mean, there's this tension of you make money, and so you should get to spend your money the way you want to. And no, you shouldn't spend your money the way that you want to. You shouldn't have everything that you want, only maybe the things that you need. So what do you guys think about that? What do you think about like that tension, living in that tension?
Well, you girls are residents here at the church, so you don't make that much money. So you don't have to live in that tension probably quite as much, do you? It's hard. It's hard. I've spoken a little bit, I guess, from the pastor perspective. What do you think, Eric, as the...
I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where everybody spends their money differently. I think that if you broke down everyone's budget, you would find things that you'd go, okay, well, here I see where all your money goes, Maybe it's a family that buys way too many groceries and they throw out stuff all the time. Maybe, and that's something that people don't necessarily see. It's not, it's a little more hidden. I mean, maybe there's, maybe it is clothing that maybe isn't as obvious that they buy a lot of Target clothes, so you don't, they're not, it's not like something that they see, right? Someone notices as expensive, but they're spending a lot of money on quantity. I think there's a lot of stuff that people can spend money on, and to a certain amount, if you work and you make money, then you do have a right to spend that money on what you want. But when you're talking about someone who's a pastor, I totally understand why people are holding them to a higher standard, and they're probably thinking, well, if you spent $4,000 on those shoes, like you could have spent like a fraction of that, and given that money to the poor. Like that's kind of always the argument, or use that money to help people. So I think it's just natural for us to have that reaction.
What about when it's the brand new iPhone and you already have an iPhone that works perfectly fine?
Well, see now, I mean, not to get technical on you, but they're leased. So you just kind of like rent your phone and then you send it back and then you get the new one. That's just so.
That's how we justify it.
That's how we justify it, right? Like
that's how we skate through the question.
It's totally fine.
That's like a whole new topic of like spending outside of your means, like not having the money right then to be able to buy the $1,000 iPhone, but knowing, well, I can pay it off over, the next 2 years and it's fine. But you don't actually have that money. I mean, that's a whole other, I think struggle that people kind of, especially Christians, deal with. Like, is it okay to be in debt? Is it not okay to be in debt? I mean, that's something that I've had to wrestle through.
We're working on booking Dave Ramsey for a few weeks from now, so we won't steal all that.
Just as a clarification, I'm pretty sure Alex is joking. If anyone's listening and gets really excited.
Yes.
Anyways, I really want a Tesla. Will I ever get a Tesla? I don't know, but I really want one. Is that, like if I sell my kidney on the black market to get a Tesla, it was my kidney to do with what I wanted, right? It's hard because we maybe have touched on this before, but it is a lot about the intention of someone's heart. So where is their heart in this? It's such a surface level thing to judge people for. Sometimes I think you just have to take a step back and be careful and try to, understand their situation. Because honestly, if someone's making a lot of money, like, an expensive shoe may be a fraction of their budget, and maybe so I was trying to think of a good example of this, but if you're thinking of someone who, let's just throw out a big number, $1 million, let's say that's their salary, and let's say they give away half of that to good deeds, and they still have $500,000.
Yeah.
And then, they still use that money to buy, expensive shoes and clothes and other nice things, and maybe they live in a nice house. Like, to them, they could easily justify the fact that, hey, I give away half of my income to good things. So why are you judging me? It's a hard thing. Like, I don't know what I'd do because I've never had that much money. So I don't know what I would say, Like, I would just buy all these limited edition Garth Brooks vinyls, I guess. That's what I would do.
Yeah, or when you have a lot of money in a season of life, it's really hard not to eat out like every night because you're like, well, why would I make dinner when I could just, eat out?
I don't have to do the dishes now.
Yes.
And if you want to hear where we would all eat out, listen to last week's episode.
Yeah, there you go.
No, it is tough. And then we face stuff even in our culture beyond like clothing and sneakers and the celebrity side of it. Like Black Friday is one of those things where I think it's we see kind of the bad side of humanity come out sometimes with people just like stampeding each other to get a flat screen TV or something. I mean, I've participated in Black Friday on occasion. I can't say I've done it for a long time because I'm just like, you realize that, these deals aren't really that good, and you could probably get just a good deal anytime in the year. I notice I've upset you, Mackenzie.
Well,
Would you like to elaborate?
I just love Black Friday shopping. So when you say that, yeah, I'm upset because I'm not somebody who's looking for sales unless it's Black Friday.
Oh, really?
I guess I'm not like somebody who's constantly looking for sales.
Okay. I see what you mean.
So
you just
the fact
know that that's your day of the year.
Yes.
So you're looking for the sale or the experience?
Both. I love shopping. To be honest, like, I don't care that the deals start on Thanksgiving. I'm there. Like, to me, it's part of Thanksgiving.
Pack me a turkey sandwich and I'm out the door.
Yeah, maybe it is completely contradicting to what Thanksgiving's all about. But, I mean, if you go with family, spend time with family. I mean, is that wrong? I do it.
I mean, I did Black Friday shopping for a long time and did the whole, like, Friday thing. But I think when I kind of started to get a little uncomfortable with it was when everything started on Thursday. So it's like Thanksgiving isn't even about Thanksgiving anymore and like just like being grateful for what you have, but it just turns into this thing of like, okay, we got to go get in line so we can buy more things that we don't have. And like your mindset kind of shifts because of that, I feel like. And so that's when I was kind of like, wait a second, that made me question, what are we doing? That's kind of a weird feeling to be going out and buying more things when we're supposed to be thankful for what we do have.
Yeah.
But if you are thankful on Thursday and then Friday you go shopping, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. In my mind, it doesn't matter if you're going on Thursday or Friday because you're still probably going. Like, if you're not going all together, that's one thing.
To me,
if you're going,
the bigger thing that consumerism is pushing that oftentimes the consumer isn't thinking about is I worked in retail before. And somebody has to staff those stores. And so somebody doesn't get the option of being with their family or shopping or any of those kind of things because it doesn't matter. We have to make money. And so that's one of the things that I like about Chick-fil-A. Like, I think that they could make a lot more money than they want, but they've got like these principles that they're like, hey, we're setting aside this day and we're just not going to open on this day. Because yes, we could make a lot more money, but we value like our people. And so I think companies are always riding that tension of how do we really show our people that we care about them, but at the same time, we want to make money. That's why we exist. And so I think we run into that as church staff maybe sometimes around we want to be here for holidays and we want to spend time with like my birthday's on Christmas, okay? And so every year there's like a new Christmas Eve service that I need to be a part of, and there's like times I have to tell my in-laws, no, Easter is one of those things. I have to say, hey, we can't hang out with you guys. We can't travel to see you guys. We love you, but because of my job, and they can kind of justify that because they're Christians, they're believers, and they're okay with it a little bit more. But it's still hard because everybody else is having that experience. And I think about my kids and what Christmas experiences they're going to have or not have, bringing all of that into the equation. And so sometimes I'm like, I wonder about the people and what our consumerism is robbing of their family time and stuff like that.
That's a great point. I would say, I was just going to say, I think that's a great point. However, if I don't go, they're still working. So do I?
Yeah. How much of a dent do you make?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do I boycott them or do I just go?
Yeah, but I also think you did make a good point of even though it was just on Friday before, it was we were thankful on Thursday, but then on Friday we were okay with being, it's it goes back to your heart again. What is your heart in all of it? Even not on Black Friday, are you thankful? Not on Thanksgiving, throughout the whole year. It's just that your heart, and yeah, that's a good point for sure.
I'm just, I'm neutral, I guess.
I
haven't done the Black Friday thing in a while, so I feel like I'm not.
Or Prime Day. This week was Prime Day, so there's a lot of people there's people boycotting Prime Day.
I did buy an Echo Dot.
Okay. Yeah.
It was only not a dot, a spot. Is it a spot or a dot? I don't know. It doesn't have a screen. I think it's a spot.
So is it because you prefer online shopping?
Absolutely. It's just, I get to just sit on my couch and poke at my phone and things show up at my door. It's great.
Did you say absolutely or absolutely?
Absolutely.
Okay. I didn't know if that was a play on words.
Yeah. No, it is one of the, and that's crazy too, because Prime Day is another example of, the people protesting the Amazon warehouse workers are protesting because, they're getting overworked, and there's a lot that we're probably not equipped to even speak on, but also it is very challenging when you're taking this Christian perspective on it. Where do you take your stance at? Where do you say, well, this is wrong and this is right? Even with the Chick-fil-A thing, sure, they're closed, but does that stop any of us from going to a restaurant on Sunday anyway that is open? You know what I mean? Do we say, well, we should just always go home and make a meal
because
family?
They took a stand. So
yeah,
for me it's usually, dang it, they're closed.
Yeah, I know, I can't get chicken. One thing that we also see, I think, kind of coming from this that's almost contrary is this Marie Kondo. Someone put this in our agenda notes, and I thought this was really interesting because that's something that series on Netflix kind of took off, and you see people's scary materialism come through in these heaps of just junk that they have, and then they try to give it away or get rid of it. And it's been good for the goodwill. But do you think people are starting to maybe recognize some of that in their own lives? They're like, oh, maybe I'm, maybe I have a problem. Maybe I need help.
I think minimalism is, which probably that's the family that it belongs in, is resurging or what. It's kind of funny because I think the tiny house stuff and minimalism that people try to do, and it's become kind of a fad, which I'm also well, tiny houses have always really existed. If you really were about selling your house and downsizing, there's a lot of other options before building a brand new tiny house that you call the tiny house, So there's even consumerism in that of we're minimalists, but we're consuming this whole new thing when there's already options available. But there's a guy named Joshua Becker who used to work here at Christ Community. Actually, he was a intern here at Christ Community. He wrote a blog, Becoming Minimalist, has written books, and he was even on a Netflix documentary about minimalism. And so I think he's spoken a lot into that idea, and I've read some of his stuff, and it has convicted me of my materialism and all that. Maybe for me, it's not that I bought one pair of $700 shoes, but instead I justified myself because I bought 10 pairs of $70 shoes that were online, and I only have 2 feet. And so in some of those ways he's convicted me, and I've tried to do exercises where I've 1 month I'm only picking 10 articles of clothing and besides underwear, okay, that I'm going to wear outer garments as a church word, that I'm going to wear and try to stick to that instead of digging into my closet, so I can see I can actually function even in the winter with 10 articles of clothing. So it's been a good heart test for me, I guess.
Okay, so I'm going to let you guys in on a part of my life that most people don't know.
Ooh.
Tiny house movement was kind of a big thing when I was in college, and I got so excited about that. I kind of got on that bandwagon. So I saved up my money and I bought an Airstream in college. And I started renovating it. I was going to live in it after college. But I think on that note, it's kind of like I was going for that minimalism and that lifestyle. And I was like super excited about it because I was like, this is going to really like be my identity. This is going to make me happy. And so I think even on that end of things, it was like, yeah, you're going for the minimalism. You're going for that lifestyle, but it's still just another trend, another thing to try and fill your happiness or make you happy. It's like, once I do this, then I'll be happy, or I'll be living the life that I want to be living. And so, so I was on that bandwagon that you were talking about earlier, the tiny house movement.
Can I invite us to turn a page that might make us a little more uncomfortable?
Ooh.
Okay.
As people that work in the church,
Yeah.
how has consumerism affected the way that we do, quote unquote, church, how we do ministry? How much has what we want to do and how we want to attract people, how much has that led into doing things because we know people want to this podcast is in part like we hope. We're not putting it out just so the four of us can just talk, because we can do that without microphones. We do this because we hope there's a way to reach people, to invite people into conversation, all of those kind of things. So I think a pure, gentle heart, but in some way there have to be consumers of this for it to work and be deemed successful. So how do you see this whole idea of consumerism playing out in the church, and what maybe makes you uncomfortable as people that are part of the church, work in the church, just are a part of the church outside of the I work at a church hat, that makes you kind of, that makes me feel weird.
Can I clarify? Are you talking about materialism within the church, or are you talking about more of a consumer mindset where you show up?
I think materialism I think materialism is driven by consumerism, by saying, here's a product that you need. We talk about the word evangelism in the church, but I think some of the best evangelists, they don't use this word, are actually Apple and Google and Amazon. They're evangelists for saying why you need something and why this is going to solve the problem that you have. And so they don't call it evangelism, obviously, because that's a churchy word. And so, but what they're trying to do is say, there's a need that you have. This is going to solve your need. And that's what we say about Jesus, right? There's this ultimate need that you're going to have, and we call it evangelism, that we're going to tell you about Jesus so that you can experience Jesus, have Jesus in your life, and it'll reform everything. And so I guess, how do we bend towards that consumerism, to clarify?
I would say the one thing that I see, if you're not familiar with who I am at the church here, I do social media. That's a big part of my job. So I'm kind of hiding in the back, filming worship or whatever, taking photos. And sometimes it's crazy to me that we come to this party for Jesus, which is what I'm referring to church as right at the moment, the Jesus party.
Sunday morning.
Like, we come here and we expect to get something for us instead of give something. And I think it's such a big part of our consumeristic culture, is that, like, what did I get out of it? Like, people can leave and go, oh, well, man, the music was too loud, or, oh, I didn't like that song, or, and like, wait a second, like, what are we here for? Like, why are you being so critical? Like, you came here to give praise to the one who created you, and yet you want to, like, sit here and just be critical of it like it was some sort of production at a playhouse or something like that, or any other type of like event outside of the church. And it's one of those things where that always kind of shocks me. I'm just like, I think that we've kind of lost sight sometimes of what the church is here for.
Yeah,
I think it's easy to fall into that because our church does so many things so well. The music is awesome. like the production is awesome. So we just get used to that, get accustomed to that. I will say personally, when I showed up for Easter this year, I fell into that because no shade on our church, but I walked in and I was like, oh, I thought that there would be like a band in the atrium and free food.
Where's the Easter bunny?
Yeah, I was like, this is Easter. This is like our second Christmas or our first Christmas, I don't know.
Our Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. Our Super Bowl. And it was just regular church, which was honestly probably pretty refreshing. But my first instinct was to look around and think, where's the entertainment?
I would say the area that I've felt it the most in any church that I've ever been in is in like serving, especially like in kids ministry. Like most churches that I've ever been in, I love serving in kids ministry, but when you're in it, you realize that there is a lack of people who are willing to serve in that area. And it blows my mind because I'm like, man, we're a body of Christ. We're supposed to be caring for each other, loving each other, and we're called to serve when we come, but it's just people, they don't want to serve, and they just want to come and receive and come to the Sunday morning service and just be there and then leave. So I just think serving in the church is a big area of need that we have now. Yeah.
I think part of it, as I listen, and there's this guy, Christian comedian, John Christ, and he really has like made a living or become relevant off of making fun of all these things that we do as a church and really highlighting it. And so it's maybe we can actually swallow it a little better. He, put some sugar on it, but he's really highlighting truths, which is what gets us to like watch and make us feel uncomfortable. But we're laughing about it, we're giggling about it, so it makes it okay. But he talks about this, and I think it causes us to have to look. And he's like, "Hey guys, I'm making fun of this," and we get mad at the people and say that they're the consumers, but we have to, as church staff, step back and look at how are we fueling the fire. Right. There's expectations of you have to do this. If you don't have a photo booth at Mother's Day, are you kidding me? Where am I going to get my photo? And so there are these things that we do, that we see in culture, that we respond to other churches, and we really are the ones creating consumers because of the things that we're doing. And so we like to blame them, but we're pandering to them, whoever them is, pandering to ourselves or our preferences and things like that. And so for me as a preacher, as a pastor, it's figuring out taking some of that blame on myself.
Well, and do you think part of the problem is that the church has started to measure success in economic values instead of kingdom values? Like you start to see like, okay, how much money did we raise? How many people attended? How many children did you sponsor at this event? Or like, how many schools did we build in another country? That sort of thing versus kingdom values, which I think are harder to measure because, whether it's love, compassion, joy, humility, mercy, these things that are much more, I guess, representative of what we're here to do as a Christ follower, but it's something that we can't measure as adequately. So it's easier for us to fall back on economic values to say, okay, well, we did a good job because of this number, Yeah. And it's a tough thing to have a conversation about because it's partially because of how true that is, but also, how do we measure success of our, of an event or of,
And what if we don't do something exciting and people leave and go to a different church? Does that speak poorly of our church? I think that's another.
And that's the thing. I think that's part of that consumeristic mentality is if you come and you're like, well, okay, well this, I didn't like what the pastor said, so I guess I'll go to a different church. And it's just like, picking, you didn't like your chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A, so now you can eat at Cane's, and they're open on Sundays.
Yeah, and I think what's so cool about being a Christian is you don't have to get on that treadmill. You don't have to get on there and keep going and keep trying to be caught up with culture and caught up with what people want. You have like clear guidelines of what is the foundation, what is the basis, what do we need to thrive, and it's not those things that are on that treadmill. It's something different.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to get to the solution maybe this week, but maybe this becomes our first 2-part kind of podcast conversation.
Sequel coming soon.
Yeah, there's a lot, I think, to unpack that we won't get to. That's even under the surface of what's driving this in us as humans, what's driving us as the church, as a corporate looking church versus Acts and things like that. And so
Well, there's a certain amount of entitlement that we all deal with. If you go to a restaurant and something's not to your standards, are you going to complain? Are you not going to complain? Or if you buy a product, are you going to complain on Twitter? Wink, wink, Alex. No, I'm just kidding. But I think there's these things that we all face, and then how do we check that at the door when we're coming to church? Like, is that something that we're capable of doing, or do we just still come in with that critical, mentality of this is all for me? They're putting this on for me, or this is why am I here? And it's tough because it's hard to not think about yourself sometimes, and I think it just goes for everybody. It's a shame that we're not going to solve it all today. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, maybe we'll be back. Maybe we'll be back talking about this.
I hope we have another episode.
Yep.
Of this podcast.
With this conversation.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can be back and give you guys more things to think about. Give us some things that you want to talk about, or things that are causing you to wrestle in this arena. Maybe it's even something about our own church that you're curious about and you want to call us on, or you want to ask more questions about, and maybe that's something we can address as we continue to dialogue about this conversation in the future. We don't want this to be about just our thoughts. That limits it, but we want the listeners' thoughts, and you guys are a part of the conversation, and so we want to learn from you and hopefully listen to you and be humble and serve you guys, because this isn't our church. It's
right.
Not like us, the staff's church. It's our church, a greater body. So
Right. All right. Well, thanks everybody for being here with us. I'd like to thank you all.
It's been fun.
It has been exciting.
And a little uncomfortable. Like, I'm even ending this feeling a little uncomfortable.
Are you feeling uncomfortable?
Yeah.
Well, good. we did it. We accomplished our task. But thanks everybody for listening or watching wherever you are. If you want to send us an email, you can do that by sending an email to podcast@cccomaha.org. Maybe we'll read your email on the show and talk about that. But until next time, we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.